Welcome to the summit, Being Alive in the Heart of Life. And I can now introduce you to Stephan Bodian. Welcome, Stephan.
Thank you, Susan. Good to be here.
And you're a psychotherapist, you're an author, and you're also the founder and director of the School for Awakening. And now we'll be talking about your book, Beyond Mindfulness, the direct approach to lasting peace, happiness, and love. So that's very exciting. And I asked you to show your book.
So my book, Beyond Mindfulness, this is my latest book. I'm working on another one, but this is what I've got for now. And then there's Wake Up Now before that.
Yeah, so in Beyond Mindfulness, you compare the mindfulness practice, meditation, with the direct approach where you come from, maybe you could say the opposite direction, where you say, I am already awake. I just need to recognize that. And there's nothing I need to do. I don't need any path or practice. I just need to recognize what I already am. Can you speak about that?
But the problem with mindfulness for awakening is that the practice of deliberately focusing and directing your mind in certain ways in order to achieve certain ends reinforces the sense of a separate doer, a separate someone who needs to do these practices in order to get somewhere they're not, right? And so that's precisely the problem or the illusion that one is endeavoring to see through on the journey of awakening. So the practice of mindfulness really reinforces the illusion of being a separate someone who needs to get somewhere, right? And this was my experience. I did it for many years, hoping to get somewhere. It didn't work. So I knew from my own experience that there were some limitations of mindfulness. And then I had the good fortune of meeting a teacher of the direct approach. In fact, the term direct approach comes from my teacher, Jean Klein, who pointed directly to the nature of awareness, which is always already present, always already available. And the role of a teacher in the direct approach is to point to what's always already been the case. And the role of the student is to open and allow this pointing to take place, turn attention back upon itself, and recognize what's there and been there all along, right? So it's a very different, completely different approach. Yeah.
So beyond mindfulness, it's going beyond being mindful. And you point to the awakened awareness that we are. And can you speak about that?
There are two separate terms, really. One would be awake awareness and one awakened awareness. My friend Locke Kelly and I have talked about this. He uses the term awake awareness, independently of me. I use the term awakened awareness. Awake awareness is that which is always already present. It's what's looking out through these eyes and experiencing life through these senses. You know, there's no someone in here. That someone is an illusion. Try to find it. You know, I invite you to try to find the one that was aware. Yeah, that's a great meditation. I teach that very often in the School for Awakening. So awake awareness is always already present. Awakened awareness is awareness that has become aware of itself as this awake awareness, as this ground of awareness. See, because, you know, that awareness is always experiencing life through these senses, but you and I, or at least most people, are not aware of that. See, it's always happening, but we're not aware of it. So becoming aware of it is what is often called awakening. Spiritual awakening is when we wake up to the fact that it's not a me who's experiencing it. It's awareness experiencing reality. And ultimately, that awareness and reality are not separate. But that awakening to awareness, to awake awareness, is awakened awareness.
So why is it that we are not awake to this awareness we are, this being?
A lifetime of conditioning, you know, ancient karma, as they say in Zen. all my ancient karma. You know, sure, you know, all the conditioning of a lifetime. From the time you're a year and a half old, it starts with me and mine, and that's reinforced and cultivated as we grow older. You know, doing more and more for me, and achieving more and more, and becoming more and more. The whole becoming trajectory takes us away from simply being. Yeah, so we're taught to become and to achieve and to further the cause of this me. Never really asked to reflect on, what does this mean that I'm going to all this trouble of doing everything for? You know, what is it? We're never asked that question until we come to a stop for whatever reason. We come to meet a teacher who asks us that question. Life gets really difficult and painful, and we have to stop and say, well, what's this all about? And then we start reflecting, right? So what gets in the way is all our beliefs, all our stories, all our narratives, that there's a me here with this history, with this memory and these plans and this solidity that we believe to be the case. When we start deconstructing and examining this me we take ourselves to be, we find there's no there, you see. But until then, it all seems very solid. And we're surrounded by other people who believe the same thing and are reinforcing that. Sure, this is what you want. Yeah, I need you to be this way. And, you know, and this is what I want from you. And this is what you need to achieve, you know. Starting with our parents and on from there.
Yeah, and in your book, you also mention emotionality and true emotions. So what is that? What are emotions?
Well, most emotion is based on thought. If you examine emotion closely, you'll see that most of the time the emotions we're experiencing are based on some story we have. So-and-so did this horrible thing to me, and they didn't respect me. And now I'm really angry and resentful, and I'm just not going to give it up. Where is that? Can you find it? Where's the substantiality of all that? It's all happening in your head, you see. And if you can see through that, the emotion will drop in an instant. See? So most emotion like that, sustained emotion, or that's continued over a period of time, is based on some narrative, some worldview, a sense of a me and others in this drama called life. Yeah. So 99% of emotions about that. Other emotion, you know, you watch a touching film and you feel moved, and there's some tears that arise, and then the film is over, and then the feelings go. That's emotion. Emotionality is everything else, you know. Someone cuts you off in traffic and you say, "Yay, stop that!" That's over, you know. That's it, you know. But the rest, the continuing, ongoing emotion, that's emotionality. What Stephan called emotionality.
There seems like thoughts and emotion are entangled. They're like feeding each other.
We haven't learned to separate. This is where meditation is very powerful. Even mindfulness meditation is very powerful in that regard, which is why, you know, when I work with people, I will often suggest mindfulness meditation for a while. Just the practice of sitting and being present for what's arising. Very powerful. A lot of people who come to these non-dual teachings don't have that background. And so everything is all conceptual and they get very lost, you see. So it's really helpful to have a ground in presence, being present for your experience just as it is. Call it mindfulness, call it presencing, you know, whatever we call it. Then we can start to be aware, oh, there's that feeling. Oh, there's that thought, there's that belief. Isn't that interesting? They arise and they pass away. They're not solid, they're just beliefs. They're not who I am. That whole process, which is really the prologue to awakening, which can take years and years and years, many people don't know how to begin that. So, you know, the direct approach is helpful, but it also has its progressive elements, you know, that can be helpful. See.
So it's like mindfulness practice can have its place until you just get to a point and you let go.
That can be one of the pitfalls of the progressive approach of mindfulness, is you can get stuck in the witness, you know, being the one who's constantly observing from on high, you know. Ultimately, you need to get out of the head and out of that perch of mindfulness in any case, whether you're in the direct approach or the progressive approach, and allow awareness to drop into direct experience. You know, that separation as the witness ultimately needs to break down.
So what happened? You were a Buddhist monk for 10 years and you were practicing mindfulness. And then you opened up for the direct approach, or what happened?
I left the monastery and I didn't immediately meet Jean Klein. I left, I continued to meditate, but not, of course, as much. I experimented with other approaches. I had a teacher of Tibetan Buddhism, Dzogchen, and I did a little Vipassana. And then I stumbled upon Jean Klein. A friend introduced me to Jean Klein, and I was taken with this man who was teaching something very different from what I was accustomed to. He was not a Buddhist, which you know, was at first of concern to me. But very shortly I realized that whatever this man had to offer, I wanted it, because he was embodying the truth that he was teaching in a way that none of my teachers up to that point, except perhaps Suzuki Roshi, had. And within about 6 months of studying with Jean Klein, I had a very profound awakening to the truth to which he was pointing without meditating. You know, what he said was, the only point of meditation, he said, don't make meditation a habit, because then you condition the mind. And what we want is an unconditioned mind, an open mind that's available for truth. So I gave up meditating. He said the only reason to meditate is to discover the meditator, to find the meditator, to find the one who is aware, essentially. And so I did as he instructed, and I had then an awakening rather quickly into this non-dual nature of reality, which I'm sure the years of sitting meditation helped, you know, me at that point. I had this foundation, but it had also been both a practice that was helpful in some ways, but also was an impediment, an obstacle. Yeah.
So it's just being who you are, like be who you are, and it's non-dual. Like, who am I? I'm just this, and that's all there is to it.
Ultimately, that's what we're looking for, the ability to just be ourselves, you know, just be as you are. That's the natural state, said Ramana Maharshi. Yeah, just be as you are. Yeah, but how difficult it is for most people to just be as they are, right? Be as we are. It's the most difficult thing in the world because of all those layers of conditioning. And when we wake up, very often a lot of that conditioning just falls away. We suddenly see the world through fresh eyes, huh? Innocent looking, without all those overlays of conditioning. It may not last for very long, but at least we have a glimpse. And then we can come back to it and come back to it, and little by little let go of the layers of conditioning. But ultimately, yeah, you know, it's amazing. It's really simply about being and complete allowing of our being as it is. You know, if you ever watch there's some films you can see of Nisargadatta Maharaj, who died, I think, in 81 or 82. There are some films of him. There are even films of Ramana back in the 40s. But you see this, you know, this guy, you know, his eyes like burning coals, you know, and he's very active and he gets very angry and then, you know, at the end it's like, just relax, you know. That's just who he is, you know. It's just he's being himself, you know. So there's no idea of some spiritual way to be. You should be calm. You shouldn't get activated, you know. He's just like all over the place. And that's just he's being who he is, you see. But there's no reactivity in it. It's just energy moving through this personality.
Yeah, so being who you are and just live like that, and it sounds very easy. It's just relax the mind and no worries, and it's easy. Yet it's like the conditioned mind always, you get pulled to that, and maybe in a way that's part of what I am too. The environment and what formed me or what it made me today is also part of me.
Good say, but sure, everything is perfect as it is, and yet, as my first teacher Suzuki Roshi said, you're perfect as you are, and you could use a little improvement. So yeah, you're being yourself no matter what. At the same time, if you're suffering, then maybe there's some work to be done. Huh? If you're identifying, then maybe there's some work to be done. We don't want to mix the absolute and relative. From the absolute perspective, everything is perfect the way it is. And we can experience that. We can know that deeply. And that's a profound way of experiencing reality. At the same time, though, there are all kinds of issues and problems and imperfections that we can certainly work on in the spirit of inherent perfection. See, this absolute relative combination is something that often gets lost in a lot of the non-dual teachings,
Yeah.
Progressive practices with a non-dual view can be very helpful. Yeah.
So it's perfect who I am. And yet it's like I'm not perfect, I'm imperfect. So it's perfection and imperfection.
But if you don't get caught up in the discrepancy, because the spiritual journey is rife with paradox. It's constantly contradicting itself.
Yeah.
So the only problem with paradox is that the mind can't figure it out. Reality is inherently paradoxical. Only the mind has a hard time with it. In reality, there's no problem. Yeah, A and B. Instead of A or B, it's A and B. So what? Reality embraces it all, right? Awakened awareness embraces it all. There's no problem. The mind thinks, wait a second, you can't have A and B simultaneously.
Yeah, and I like your analogy in the book. It's like the sky. We are like the sky. And in the sky, the birds can fly, the clouds can pass by. It's like with this air or space.
Space is the metaphor that's often used as a metaphor for awareness. It's like space. Yeah, it's boundless. Everything's included. Nothing is left out of space. Space never gets filled, right? There's always more space. So yeah, boundless, open, without limit, without beginning, without an end.
Yeah. So it's an openness to what is not resisted, like being open to feelings, emotions, thoughts. Just allow it to be there as it is. And yet there is often some fear of what's going to show up in my life. What's
First, let's realize that there's no one to fear. The heart of the matter is to realize that there's no one in here who has anything to fear. As long as we identify with a separate self, we're going to have fear. You see, the way through fear is not to convince ourselves that there's nothing to fear. The way through fear is to see that there's no one there who has anything to fear, because there's no attack, there's no problem. You see. So awakening cuts to the heart of the matter, cuts through the illusion of being a separate someone. As long as there's a separate someone, there's going to be fear. Self and other, inside and outside. As long as there are boundaries like that, there's going to be fear. So to see into the nature of reality and into our true nature is the key, the heart.
Thank you. And what is your website?
My website is stephanbodian.org. That's PHAN. No doubt if you're on this course, you'll see it spelling, stephanbodian.org. Yeah, and as you mentioned, I offer an annual School for Awakening. It's a 6-month program in spiritual awakening, which begins each January. I've been doing it for 15 years now. An intensive program that's available online, so you can go to my website and check it out. And I'll also be doing some retreats, classes in the fall. So I invite you to check those out as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Susan. It's lovely to be with you.